There was a culture back then that men, they were sort of encouraged to be super laddish and loud and chauvinistic and derogatory about women.
If you was on telly in my country when I was a teenage boy, it messed me up.
In what way?
I think you're gorgeous.
Oh, thank you, Russell. It's very kind of you.
It ain't kind. It's just a bit rude. Because things was getting a bit fruity out there. All right, Liz, goodbye.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's been really a wonderful listening. You look nice.
Thank you so much, Russell. I appreciate
I like these sort of gladiator high-heel shoes you're wearing, and I like your legs. Now, I understand you've been celibate for a while. When are you going to give that up?
It's weird because when I was younger, I found that really funny. But then I found a lot of things funny when I was younger that I don't now. If anything, it was rewarded because look how many bookings they got. Look how much money they made. Look at how short the suspension of Jonathan Ross was. There was no consequences for that guy. I try so hard to live my life without resentments, but that's one that I'm still working on. It was obvious that the girls were around all the time. The things that he was saying alone were very, very sex addict-y, in my opinion. And there's been collateral damage, and I am that collateral damage, and so are some of the other girls.
You're here in the wake of the revelations on Channel 4's Dispatches about Russell Brand, because you were in a casual relationship at the time that some of these allegations were made. Have you seen the documentary?
Yes, I have.
What were your thoughts?
I thought it was really disturbing. I didn't know that side of him. Everything that I saw of Russell was completely consensual. That happened with me anyway, and I was really shocked to see what I saw in that documentary.
When did your relationship with Russell begin?
It began in 2005. I was 20.
How did it begin?
I'm not proud of this, but it was a sort of set up friends with benefits situation arranged through a mutual friend. To be honest, at the time, I just wanted an exciting experience, and that's what I got.
So how was it set up by a friend? What was the first interaction between the two of you?
Oh, I basically begged this girl to give me his number. And then I got his number and I went and saw him.
Where did you go and see him? What was that?
I went straight to his house. The obvious happened. I was up for it. I was up for it at the time, and I didn't think anything of it because I was very promiscuous in my youth.
I understand that you were also quite vulnerable at this time on drink and drugs. And
yeah, so I was going through quite a difficult time after my parents got divorced, and I was living alone, paying my own bills for the first time, and I didn't really know what the heck I was doing. And so, yeah, I guess in that sense, I turned to drink and drugs and some bad behaviors. I suppose in that sense I was vulnerable, yeah. Never did he ever do anything that I didn't want him to.
Did he ever force himself upon you?
Never did he force himself on me.
You're a 38-year-old woman now, then.
I am, yes.
And what do you think when you look back at that behaviour with that man who is 10 years older?
I mean, I would talk to little Georgie and I would say, what the heck are you doing? You don't need to do that. You're worth more than that. She's so dissociated that I don't have any connection to that girl anymore because I'm so not like her.
He made amends to you because 6 months after your casual relationship finished, he and Jonathan Ross on BBC Radio 2 show left some pretty offensive messages on your grandfather's answer machine about him having, excuse the language, but this was, I think, Jonathan Ross's words, having you.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty outrageous, isn't it? The thought of my grandparents knowing who I've had sex with and what I did and when, anybody would shudder at that.
How did your grandfather respond to you?
He just asked me not to say anything about it, and I wish that I would have listened.
How did it affect you at the time? Because I think, how many stints in rehab have you had?
I've had 3.
Right,
yeah.
And a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
Was this self-loathing?
Yeah. I was very resentful about my grandparents and how I didn't have a relationship with them for a few years, but I can't attribute all of that to the tapes. You know, I was a real wild child nightmare. I think I was allowed back into the house at some point in 2013, but then that was swiftly upturned because I was in a music video with Adam Ant and they played it on Jonathan Ross's show. So for some reason that was That was me out again. And then I saw my granddad again 3 years later, pretty much on his deathbed. And that was really hard because I didn't know if I was registering with him because he had dementia. With dementia, sometimes there's lucid moments. And so I felt like I was able to like thoroughly, fully apologize to him. I took his hands in my hands and I looked him in the eyes and I said, look, Granddad, I'm really, really sorry for embarrassing you and humiliating you. And then he smiled and then it went back to glossy over.
What are your feelings towards Jonathan Ross and Russell Brand for that?
Two separate feelings for each one. So Russell, we'll start with him. I have forgiven Russell because he made his amends to me, and that's all I can ask from somebody in recovery. He looked me in the eyes and he explained that he understood that it was a private relationship and that it should never have been publicized, and he also took ownership of the consequences that happened to me and my family after. That was in 2018 when he paid for me to go into treatment because I couldn't stop drinking. Nobody wanted to pay for me to go to rehab again because I wasted it last time. And so he sent me and he kept me from harming myself for a few months there. Even though I didn't remain sober after that rehab, they introduced me to 12-step recovery. And that is probably the reason why I'm not dead right now.
You said that there's two individuals involved in these calls. Jonathan Ross.
He's never apologized to me. I may be wrong, but it makes me feel like I'm not, like I don't matter and I'm just some disposable. Russell was clearly very, very poorly with the sex addiction. He was being enabled by people who were making money off the outrageousness and how much more outrageous could he be, and he was literally being encouraged to engage in this dangerous behavior when really, when one cross addicts, it's almost equivalent to somebody saying like, here's some heroin, like shoot up right now, shoot up in front of all those people because it'll be funny. That's how I see it. And so I think whoever was advising him or any of the production companies or whoever it was, they should be ashamed of themselves because they should have said, no, you're going to rehab and you're staying for a year. Like, I don't know how long it would have taken, but that boy was not well. When he made his amends to me, he explained how he wasn't working a program at the time, meaning that his alcoholism, drug addiction wasn't being treated essentially. So he was being what we call a dry drunk. And when we do that, we cross addict onto other things. So he explained that his sex addiction was like ramped right up. And now he has 2 daughters. And with hindsight, he understands how damaging it was. And I believe him, and all is forgiven on my side.